Hi, my name is Jennifer Jameson. I'm with Crosby Scholars, and this is the recording of the July Free Parent webinar series that was held on July 18th. Today, we're going to be talking about paying for college. Just a reminder, we do offer on the third Thursday of every month a different webinar on topics related to post high school education choices and options for students in Iredell County. So today's free webinar, we're going to talk about understanding the cost, ways to keep costs down, and scholarships. So let's start with the cost of college. Now, there's many places that you're going to be able to see numbers represented for colleges. Most of the time you hear tuition, tuition this, tuition that, in-state tuition, out-of-state tuition, private school tuition, right? Tuition is just one small part of the cost. And so my first thing that I want everybody to understand is when you go to a website like Big Future or any of the college search engines, and you see the average cost of tuition, please remember that the cost that's being represented to you is just tuition. It is not housing and meal plan and insurance and some of the other things that go into the cost. Now, we are looking today at direct costs that you will pay directly to the university and indirect costs, money that the federal government and the schools use to calculate your financial aid award package, but that you won't necessarily pay directly to the school. So in the direct cost column, you have tuition and fees can be a very general thing. So I'll give you an example. At the North Carolina Promise Schools, Western Carolina, Pembroke, and Elizabeth City State, they boast a $500 tuition per semester. But when you actually get your bill, it's more than $500. It's not, you are saving money from the other institutions, but there are fees built into that. So it's not like, hey, I'm just writing a $500 check. So you just want to be aware. Housing, meal plan, sometimes those are broken out separate, sometimes they're combined. Both in housing and meal plan, based on what your student chooses, might determine the cost there. So they might represent one cost on their website or in their total cost of attendance. But when you sign up for a suite style dorm or an apartment style dorm or a premium location, or if you sign up for a meal plan, a basic meal plan versus a meal plan with more swipes and more access to different things, note that that can be a moving number based on your decisions and what you do can affect those costs as well. The other thing that you see on most bills from the universities is insurance. Now, colleges and universities handle this differently. In the state of North Carolina, they want you to make sure that your student has medical insurance. If your student already has medical insurance, you can they have a waiver with Blue Cross Blue Shield. You log in with your student's email address or your student logs in with their email address and their student ID. They select their school, and then you enter the insurance information found on your insurance card, and then they will waive this fee. So this is really important not to miss because this is a $1,200 cost that you might see on your bill that can go away by just filling out a form. Okay, so again, we're talking about how to keep costs down. There could be other miscellaneous fees, and depending on, you really can't compare your bill to your next door neighbor's bill kind of thing, because if you're studying engineering, there might be an extra cost. If you are studying art, there might be an extra cost. If you take out a loan through the school, sometimes the schools have a loan processing fee that they charge. Parking, if you're bringing a car on campus, there might be a parking fee. Student services might have a facility fee for all those beautiful rec buildings or whatever. So there are additional miscellaneous fees. And when you compare college to college, they're not going to all match up because they don't all have the same types of services. So anyway, those are typically the direct costs that you're looking at paying. Now, when you're talking about indirect cost, you're talking about transportation, miscellaneous costs, books and supplies. I mean, I put this here as almost like a joke, but every time your kid goes to Starbucks and DoorDash, if they join a sorority or fraternity or some kind of social club or organization that requires fees to participate, which by the way, you don't have to do, but if you're choosing that as part of your path, there are indirect costs that are associated with that. Now, it's very hard to budget these costs sometimes, but you can look at different factors in how your student is going to go to school or where they're going to go to school to know whether you need to kind of pad this number. Transportation, for instance, if you live in Iredell County and you choose to go to college at UNC Charlotte, App State, Catawba, something in the direct vicinity, your transportation costs are tied to gas. But if your student decides to go to Stanford out in California, then you need to make sure that you're budgeting an airplane ticket, right? At least 4 times a year. Like Christmas break, you have to decide whether or not they can come home Thanksgiving break, going back, and forth, spring, all that fun stuff. So transportation, again, can ebb and flow depending on how far away you are from the university from home. And miscellaneous fees on colleges' cost of attendance, they vary differently. Some colleges overestimate these, and some underestimate them. So you really just have to take a good look at your budget and make a good plan. So cost of attendance, cost of college, this is what we're looking at. Okay. Like I said, when you go to some websites, they represent the cost of attendance or the cost of college, and they really just represent like the average price that people are paying for tuition, right? I like to look at the whole number. So this is a site, it's called the National Center of Education Statistics. You can simply Google College Navigator and then select the National Center for Education Statistics. This site lists all the colleges that use some kind of federal funding. So if a college or university is getting money from the federal government, they have to provide certain data points to said government in order to be able to get those funds. So this is the government site where you can go look at those data points. And there's lots more information. So you can log in there. You can see admissions. You can see how many students, how many women versus men, what is their diversity mix, how many professors are full-time professors versus part-time professors or contract people, right? So what we're specifically talking about on this screen is when you go here, you can click on Tuition and Fees tab, and you can actually see a breakout line by line of the things that I was talking about for the past 3 years. So you've got 4 years worth of data here. And then you can also see, I love this feature. You can see very clearly the percentage up or down that they are representing. So this happens to be App State. And this was in July of 2024 when I pulled it. So if you're looking at this video in 2025 or 2026, these numbers might be different now. But you can see that tuition is really close to, it's only a 1.2% increase in tuition. But I want you to notice the in-state line versus the out-of-state line. So if you're a North Carolina resident, you prove your residency, you will get in-state tuition. If you live outside of the state of North Carolina, you can see that there's a big jump in the amount that they charge out-of-state students for tuition. By the way, if you are going out of state somewhere, that's the number that you should be looking at when you're considering your cost. So books and supplies, again, I know that App State has a rental program, so this pretty much stays consistent across the board. Then you look at living arrangements. I love the way that this site breaks out living on campus versus living off campus. and living off campus with your family, right? So that's one of the ways to keep costs down is, if you're going to go to UNC Charlotte, then live at home. And if you live at home, then you don't have the food and housing expenses. I know that when my kids come home, they want to eat, so I still have to buy food for them. But it's not wrapped up in this number. So I like the way that it summarizes the total, and you can see in-state versus out-of-state, the all-in number, right? If I lived on campus and I'm an in-state student, last year for 23-24 school year, they paid $23,324. Okay. To my point about miscellaneous costs in the past and other expenses, please notice. I mean, look at these. Look at this on other expenses line. It's actually reduced. I don't know why it's reduced, but some colleges you'll see like $5,000 for other expenses. Again, that's not something that you're actually paying to the university. It's money that you might incur costs with, right? All right, so I'm going to move on to the next page. Okay, now I was doing some research because back when, if you're a parent and you're watching this, back when you went to school, I attended App State and I didn't pay anywhere near $23,000 to go to App State, right? So we know that the cost of everything has gone up dramatically since we went to college. And since 1963, full-time college students, the cost have climbed about 143%. So gone are the days where I could get a job in the summer, take all of the money that I earned, give it to my parents, and it would cover half of the cost of my school. It's very hard, if not impossible, to do that nowadays. So money needs to be a conversation that you and your student and your family talk about and you plan for. So some of the things that I'm going to talk about today are not going to be very popular. In fact, on the next screen, you might just turn me off because of some comments that I make. I want you to keep in mind that my goal is to make sure that you have the information you need to make informed decisions and plan so that you are not suffering later in life and bogged down with a heavy amount of debt that's just crippling. Okay, so here we go. I was listening to a Dave Ramsey podcast, and they were interviewing Anthony O'Neill here, and he has written a book called Debt Free Degree. And it caught my attention, of course, but one of the things that Mr. O'Neill had said was, we are asking students to make an adult decision with a kid mindset. So if you just take that App State cost that I have represented there, and if you look at NC State, it's about 26,000. Chapel Hill is about 26,000 all in, right? You're talking about over $100,000 in a 4-year time frame. That is a big purchase, right? So let's now look at a 17-year-old, and sometimes parents like, how are we making that decision? So sometimes I will sit down with students and I will ask them, hey, where do you want to go to school? And I want to go to a Big Ten school with a big football team and join a sorority and fraternity, right? Like, I'm like, whoa. Do you understand how an out-of-state school, what that costs? How are you going to pay for it, right? So some of the conversations is to just reframe. First off, you got to take the emotion out of it. Secondly, you've got to think about it like a business. And thirdly, this is a big decision that will have impact on your life going on and on and on. So you want to be really smart about it. So here are a few tips that can help. Okay, so tip number one, you want to manage the cost, right? The best way to pay for college is to not have to pay too much for college, okay? So if you can preemptively do some of these things to reduce what the cost of college will be, then you won't be burdened later on with paying that cost or paying it back, right? So the first thing you can do, I love in Iredell County, we have an early college program, and Mitchell Community College actually offers CCP, which is Career and College Promise classes. So your student, your high school student, can actually take college level community college classes as a part of their high school schedule. And if they do well in those classes and those classes are transferable, then they can use those as college credits. And sometimes that means you can go to college for less time. So if you can take enough classes, well, like the early college kids, they're going to come out with an associate's degree. So they could logistically be looking at only another 2 years in a 4-year university, right? So, this is not for everybody. Especially, I'm going to put this caveat in here. If you're looking at an early college program and your student at the end of their associates still has no idea what they want to do, that's a problem, right? So again, we have programs available in Iredell County that can give your student the ability to take some classes, reduce the amount of time that they spend in a 4-year university. I will call out AP classes as well, AP, IB. There are ways to get college credits for those. And you can usually go to the college website and look at their course catalog, and they usually have like a transfer list, like what courses will transfer. I was at Elon a couple weeks ago, and they had like a spreadsheet just handing out, and it had all the list of the AP classes and what score you had to get in order for it to be transferred in, and you not have to take the class. So anyway, that's out there. The next thing you can do is consider online classes, right? I always tell my students when I meet with them, do me a favor, go find your dream job on Indeed.com, go figure out how much money you're going to make, and do me a favor, go figure out what kind of education and certifications you need. And it's very possible that you can do online learning and get the certifications that you need to be able to get the job that you want, right? You do want to be careful on this. I have seen some predatory online learning sites, especially for profit, right? Be careful. So again, you really want to vet the programs, but I know that there are colleges and universities, viable, nonprofit colleges and universities that are offering some version of online. Maybe it's a hybrid, right? The next thing you can do, one of the easiest things you can do in North Carolina to save money on the cost of your college is to attend an in-state public school. There are 17 school programs in North Carolina, 3 of which have, like I said, that $500 tuition, where you're saving about $2,000 to $2,500 than you are from other schools. That includes historically Black colleges. That includes Chapel Hill, State, ECU, App State, Wilmington, UNC Charlotte. The list goes on. So we are very lucky in North Carolina to have colleges that are so sought after. I mean, I just saw something about Chapel Hill being the next Ivy League. There's so many students that want to go there, that kind of thing. Anyway, when you are creating your list of colleges, please make sure to put at least one in-state public school so that you have options to keep your costs down. The other thing you can do is you can start at a community college. Now, I know we talked about taking community colleges classes in high school, but you can also start your education at a Mitchell Community College, CPCC, Forsyth Tech, Catawba Valley Community College, and then transfer into a 4-year university. So maybe the first 2 years you're living at home, you're getting your associate's degree, and then you transfer in. Some students actually use this if they don't have the grades or scores. They want to build their academic career and then transfer into one of those more selective in-state schools. Community colleges also often have a relationship with public universities. Example, Mitchell Community College has a relationship with UNC Charlotte. They call it 49er Next. So as soon as you tell Mitchell and your advisor at Mitchell that you want to go to UNC Charlotte for 49er Next, you're automatically accepted into UNC Charlotte based on your grades and your Mitchell classes, of course. But the advisor is going to make sure that you take classes that transfer and that will build towards the major that you want to do. So it's a great way to save money. Um, you also want to consider a less selective private school. So here's, and this is a lot. I maybe should have had a different slide on this. Sorry, it's too late at this point. But um, you want to, so my thing, here we go. If you want to go to a Duke, you go to look at Duke selectivity, you're looking at the single digit acceptance rate. I mean, we're talking maybe 6% of the students that apply get in, right? That means that if they're really selective, everybody there has really good grades and or really good test scores, right? So if this is kind of like the Incredibles, if everybody's smart, then if everybody's special, then nobody is, right? So from my perspective, there are less selective private schools who have access to endowments and funds, and they want to attract the same level of student that wants to go to a Duke, and they're more willing to offer merit-based money and scholarships in order to get you in the door. And you will get a great education at one of these schools. So I'm going to list a few: Furman, Wofford, High Point, Elon, Wingate. There's just a lot. I think Meredith. Anyway, there's a lot of public schools that are not quite as selective as some of those elite schools, and you have access to more merit money that would reduce their costs. Lenore Ryan is another one. Okay. The last one on this page is you can live on campus all 4 years, or better yet, live at home and commute, right? That's another way to keep your costs down. So when I say live on campus, let me give you the example of UNC Asheville, okay? So if you go and look at the Asheville housing market and the average cost of rent for a home or apartment in Asheville, it's a pretty high ticket number. UNC Asheville is a small enough college where they have enough dorms for you to live on campus. And not only do they have dorms, they have really nice, like apartment style suite dorms. I mean, my son had access for 3 years to suite style, 2 of those years with a full kitchen and living room with a single bedroom, and he shared, 4 guys shared 2 bathrooms. So, I mean, why would I pay for rent off of UNC Asheville's campus? Yes, he's going to live on campus all 4 years. And then the other thing is, when you're looking at the cost, when you finally decide on the schools, especially if somebody's going out of state, I want you to go and consider the cost of housing in the area that you're looking to go to school. Because if you are going to estimate what your costs are, I need you to estimate 4 years worth of cost and the cost of an apartment, electricity, that kind of thing, because you really can't get a good understanding if you don't understand the housing market. So anyway, these are my first tips. You've got to manage the cost, keep it down on the front end. Okay. Tip number 2, I need you to set a budget. I need you to have, talking with your student about money, students talking with your parents about money. That's a hard conversation. I get it, right? Students, you don't need to know what mom and dad make. Mom and dad, you don't have to share all the particulars, but you do need to set a level and expectation, right? You don't want your student to go out and apply to all schools that cost $60,000 when you're only really willing to pay $25,000, right? So if they can't come up with a difference, then their hopes and dreams are going to be crushed. Now, this is why I'm like, manage this on the front end, set expectations, and then realistically go after what you want, right? I am not saying it's not possible to go to one of these schools, these really expensive schools, at a decent price. I am just saying that you need to make sure that you're taking the steps to do so, and that you as a family set a budget and talk about that budget and make sure that the lines of communication are open. I cannot tell you how many people call me in the spring and they're just crushed that they had no idea what the cost of the school was going to be. And I'm like, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about this now before you finalize your list to apply to college. Okay. When you're looking at your budget, I need you to also consider, if I'm getting loans, what is the max on a monthly payment for paying those loans back after 4 years that I can support? So this is for students, like how much money am I going to borrow from the federal government in order to go to school, right? Right now, it's on average of about $35,000 over a 4-year time frame. So again, keeping those costs down early so you can take less of those loans out, right? And then parents, you know, if you can't pay the difference between the student loan and the other costs associated with the college, are you taking out loans? I have seen stories where parents took out all these loans to send them to school. We want to be there for our kids. We want to send them and get a good education, but you don't have to go bankrupt doing it. Okay. So anyway, set a budget. The next tip is apply for financial aid. Now, a lot of students I talk to, they're like, oh, we're not going to qualify for anything. That's not your decision, right? From my perspective, you should go and apply for everything, and then they will tell you yes or no. If you don't apply, it's kind of like a lottery. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win, right? So the first thing that you will hear about at school, your school counselor will help you with. We can help you with this. We have a financial aid coordinator, Dominic Jones, who's wonderful. Um, but the FAFSA, it's the free application for federal student aid. And last year it opened in January. This year we're hoping it opens closer to October, but we will have sessions solely on the FAFSA. Okay, so my advice here is complete the FAFSA. The second thing you're going to do is when you go to apply to in-state public schools, you will have to prove that you're a North Carolina resident. I have some students who are like, oh, I'm not going to an in-state public school, I'm going out of state, or I'm going to a private school, so it doesn't matter. It does matter, okay? Go ahead and prove that you're a North Carolina resident, and that private school that's in North Carolina, they do have access to need-based state funds. So if you qualify for need-based state funds, like from the North Carolina Education Lottery, and they've all combined it to be one North Carolina Needs Scholarship kind of thing. But the only way you have access to that at a private school or in-state public school is to fill out this RDS. So make sure you do that. The last thing to apply for financial aid, this is the CSS profile. It's on the College Board website. We will have a session on how to fill this out as well. Only 5 colleges in the state of North Carolina require the CSS profile. So most colleges will only use FAFSA and RDS to determine need and make their financial aid package offer. But the highly selective schools, especially like a Davidson, who their philosophy is they want to make sure that students finish school with no loans. I mean, that's unheard of. And they meet 100% of need. Well, they don't just use FAFSA to calculate that need, they use the CSS profile. So where the FAFSA is a student and a parent that is filling out information, the CSS profile is the student. It is mom, it is dad, if there's other adults living in the home, if mom and dad are divorced and there's step parents involved, like it's a more detailed picture of your finances, the CSS profile. The schools in North Carolina that use the CSS profile, Chapel Hill, Davidson, Duke, Wake Forest, and Elon. So you can talk to the financial aid departments at those schools and determine when you need to fill this up. Okay. My next tip is a lot of people, and one of the reasons why we're actually having this conversation right now is that students often will ask me, hey, do you have a list of scholarships? And my first response always is, have you applied for institutional money at the colleges that you're applying to? Okay. So when you are creating your list of colleges to apply to, I want you to go research. Do they have your major, right? Did you use their net price calculator to come up with how much it might cost you to go to school there? Do you know how you apply? Are you using the Common App or CFNC, or do they have an application directly on their website? With the answers to all of these questions, you're also going to ask, hey, do you have institutional scholarships that I can apply for? Is it part of, like, some schools like Queens College, right? You're going to apply for admission and they are going to consider you for their merit money based on your admissions documents. They're going to consider you for need-based money based on the FAFSA, and they will automatically make you an offer of scholarships, or at least some scholarships, without having to fill out another application. However, they also have other scholarships that they might invite you to apply to a scholarship, like a presidential scholarship. So you want to go to the schools and you want to find out, hey, what is the process for applying for scholarships? What's the deadlines? And how do I get in line, right? How do I get this done? So I'll give you a few high-level examples. So North Carolina, Chapel Hill, the Tar Heels, they have an elite program called the Morehead-Cain Scholars. They also have the Robeson, like they have quite a few scholarships. You can go to any of these schools' websites, go to the search button, type in scholarships, and it should get you to a page that then shows you their elite scholarships, their process for applying, and what they have to offer. The reason we're talking about it now, North Carolina, Chapel Hill, the Morehead-Cain, some of you might have been contacted by your school counselor and you might have been nominated by your school to apply to this. Lots of students don't realize you can self-nominate. You don't have to have your high school's nomination in order to apply for these funds. So if you're self-nominating, what's one thing you need to know? Hey, when's the deadline, right? Chapel Hill's deadline is October 1st. A lot of students don't have visibility to that, right? Their admissions early action deadline is October 15th. So if you were so focused on the admissions, you might have missed the deadline for the scholarship, right? Same with, like, let's look at NC State, like NC State, the Park Scholarship, right? If you read the fine print on their financial aid page, and again, what I am saying now might change, but this is just what I have found. So you need to go do your research. But NC State, you apply for admissions. You then get access to your Wolfpack account, and then you can log into your Wolfpack account to apply for scholarships. So if you wait until November 1st to submit your admissions early action deadline application, then guess what? Their scholarship application is due by November 1st as well. So you can't create a Wolfpack account and fill out all the applications for the scholarships and get it done. So logistically, you should really be finishing your NC State admissions application by October as well, so that you have time to then fill out your scholarship applications for them. All of the schools listed on this page have some level of scholarships that are available. You should go to their websites. You can figure out what it is and then figure out how you get that money. Okay. Call me if you need anything. Honestly, I am available to answer any questions. All right. So the other thing I want to make you aware of when you go to those websites and you're looking at the information about institutional funds, there are different departments that have access to different money. Okay. So the financial aid department, they don't necessarily, and it depends depending on the school, but they usually are managing the award letters, and they are managing the need-based grants and scholarships that are being offered. Okay. Then you have admissions. Admissions has their own little bucket of money. And this is where, when I was talking about it, those less selective private schools, they have access to, they're going to call it merit-based coupons, merit-based scholarships. I call them coupons, right? They're like little discounts. Thank you for applying. Here's an $11,000 scholarship. You've been accepted, right? So anyway, so admissions has access to money. Departments might have access to money. I will tell you, depending on what you want to study, I know if you go to App State's website, you go to their high-level scholarships, you're going to see that there's a scholarship, I believe, for healthcare and one for education. So again, there's the honors level across the board chancellor scholarship, but there's also the Wright College of Education scholarship that you can apply for. So depending on what you're studying, the departments might have money. And, don't stop looking at the departments just your first year of college. It is very possible that when you are a sophomore or when you've declared your major, there's actually department scholarships available for upperclassmen to apply for at a later time. So look out for those. Athletics has money. What I'm going to say about that today in this very short time is athletic full rides is like less than 1% of the people across the country, right? What you're going to find is that a lot, depending on the size of the school and the program, some of them might not even be able to offer you athletic money. They might have to offer you merit money to be on athletics, or they might offer tuition and not cover room and board. Like it's like a game. And that's a whole nother conversation. I have seen students get scholarships. They might be small scholarships, but for participating in marching band or pep band, or, basically, what do you have that college or university needs? I give you a story about admissions. I was recently visiting a college, and up on the board, they were so proud that they had a student who had participated in their school from all 49 states. And you're like, oh, well, there's 50 states. And as we were going through, they were asking, hey, who came the farthest? And a little girl raised her hand and said, yeah, I'm from North Dakota. And the admissions people like looked at each other like, right? Like that's the one state they didn't have a student yet. Guess what? I mean, I swear, I know that woman was being offered a scholarship, because if she comes to the school, right, they can now say that they represent students from all 50 states, right? So that's the kind of silly that you might find by researching institutional scholarships, right? So do the research directly on the website. That's the other thing I would say. There are a lot of like Crosby scholars. I am never going to represent that we are the end all be all of information, because just like I said on the previous slide, I'm talking to you today. In 10 minutes, it could be different. So you want to get this information directly from the colleges, directly from their websites, and or directly from their financial aid and admissions departments. Okay, so do your research. Okay, now let's talk about QuestBridge. So for the families that are listening now who have high need, that means that your family's income is less than a certain dollar amount. And I don't know, let's start with less than $100,000, but each organization has their own threshold. I don't know what the details are, but QuestBridge is an organization that is trying to match high achieving students with high grades, high test scores to some of the most elite colleges and universities in the country. We're talking Yale, Princeton, Rice, Duke, Davidson, right? Cornell, Columbia, right? So the way this works is your student applies to QuestBridge through the QuestBridge application by September something. I don't know the deadline, but you have to do it by September. There's some essays that go into this. You do have to report your family's income. So your student might need some help with that. But if you're chosen, first off, if you pass that first path, the second path is then you get to apply early and make a list of the colleges that you want to match to. So they have 40 colleges on their list that they're working with this program. So you list your 12, and then the colleges start looking at applications. And if a college that's on your list of 12, actually the first college that wants you, and you have them on your list of 12, you can match for a full 4-year, everything paid. And I'm not just talking tuition, room, board, miscellaneous, everything's covered, scholarship. So this is definitely an option. We have a lot of students that apply this way. Last year, we had 6 students who were finalists. So in December, they were notified that they were passing through to the next level for the matching. We had 2 students in Iredell County that participated in Crosby Scholars that matched. One is going to Duke and one is going to Davidson, and they got a full ride. So if you have any questions about this, give me a call or send me an email and I'll help you with it. Okay. All right. The next tip, number 5, apply for outside scholarships. Now, when you go to the schools, colleges' websites, and you look at their scholarship page, most of them will also have like a little box that says outside scholarships. What that means is scholarships that were paid to the colleges or universities on behalf of the student by an organization that is not the college or university. So this could be anything, right? So it could be Crosby Scholars. We pay money to colleges for scholarships and for last dollar need-based grants. Okay. There are multiple levels of this. So when I look at the national organizations, right, the pro of this is that there seem to be a lot of scholarships available. The con is a lot of people are applying for those. So like the Coca-Cola Service Scholarship, right? Hundreds of thousands of kids apply for that. So your chances are 1 in 10,000, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's hard, right, to get that money. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try, right? You never know when you're going to be the one that qualifies and kind of keeps going through. Jack Kent Cooke is another one, National Merit through College Board. If you're a junior and you test really well, make sure you talk to your school counselor about taking the PSAT as a junior in October at your school so that you can be considered for national merit scholarships through the College Board. You can go do your research, just type in National Merit Scholars and you can find the details. Scholarships.org is a website. Dell Scholars is one. Then you've got professional organizations. So I like to say, student, hey, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to be a teacher. Okay, well, let's go find scholarships where people are paying teachers to be educated, right? In the state of North Carolina, you got Teach NC, you've got Teaching Fellows. I'm sure that there's a national organization that is helping to fund teachers. We need teachers. We really do. Same with healthcare. There are healthcare websites, professional organizations. Johnson & Johnson has like a nursing scholarship that I found. Engineering, women in STEM. I mean, you go look at the National Association of Women's Surgeons, and it's very possible that along the bottom of that page with the About Us, Contact Us, and Careers In, you might find scholarship, right? So go look. Community organizations is the next one. So I want you to think of this like, what in this area can you participate? Are there service organizations? The Rotary Club, the Ruritan Club, the Mooresville Rescue Squad, the NAACP, Iredell County chapter, Crosby Scholars, right? The list goes on and on and on. It's like the future HR professionals I've seen given a scholarship. So my best advice here is a lot of these community organizations are managed like the Statesville Women's Leadership. Some of these are paper documents. You kind of have to know that they do it and then go out and look for the application around the time frame. Some of these will be publicized by your school counselors on their scholarship website. Some school counselors, some of these organizations will actually use the school counselor to help them with the application process and set up interviews and that kind of thing. So work with your school counselor to find out what local communities are offering something. And then do me a favor, apply, right? There are scholarships at your school, I guarantee you, every year that nobody applies for. Um, so, take a chance. The other thing you want to do is you want to look at other. So your employer, if you work for Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Chipotle, right? Lots of fast food organizations offer some type of scholarships. Maybe not you as the student employer, maybe parent, maybe your employer offers scholarships that the employees, students can apply for. Go ask, you never know. I've seen churches give out scholarships, other clubs, some high schools might have or sponsor a scholarship. There are military scholarships if you're a vet, if you're planning to go into the military, participating in ROTC, if you're the student of a veteran who did not use their GI Bill. There are ways for your children to then have access to those benefits. So there's lots of different ways that you can find outside scholarships to apply for. Okay, so typical scholarship application process looks like this, right? Depending on the complexity and the level of like how big it is, right? You might be applying with basic form. You could be handwriting it, or you could be uploading information into a formalized computer system like Submittable, like you do with us. So it can be online paper. Typically, there's an eligibility question. Now, I have two philosophies on the eligibility question. The first one is, don't waste your time applying for things you're not eligible for. So, for instance, the Mooresville Rescue Squad, their funding is based on an organization kind of dismantling within the Mooresville city limits, right? So we're talking about 28115 and 28117. If you don't live in 28115 or 28117, you're not eligible to apply for this and you won't get that money. So don't waste your time. There are other requirements that sometimes scholarships put in place, like you have to study a certain thing. There are some that are hard and fast, and others that, if the application allows you to submit, I might say go ahead and submit, because you never know when they don't have enough applications and they waive an eligibility factor, right? Now, some are hard and fast and they'll tell you that, and others might just be, hey, we'd like you to have this. And if you don't have it, go ahead and apply and see what happens. Or reach out to them and say, hey, listen, I'm in this situation and should I still apply? Would it be a benefit for me to apply? And they'll tell you yes or no. Typically, the components of that application are a resume, recommendations, and some kind of essay, right? The resume is, if you don't have a job, usually it's a list of activities and community impact, along with any work that you might have done if you're a student. Letters of rec sometimes come from teachers, sometimes come from mentors. For some organizations, you might need to be a part of the organization and get a sponsorship level letter from someone within the organization. I'm trying to think of an example of that. As far as essays are concerned, there are some scholarships out there that are no essay scholarships, but proceed with caution, right? They're just trying to collect names and information in a lot of cases. And what are they going to do with your name and information? But in regards to the essay itself, usually they want you to answer a prompt, usually between 250 words, and it's always less than 1,000 words. The three most popular topics I've seen, something about overcoming an obstacle, something about giving back to the community, and something about your goals and aspirations. So there we go. And by the way, those topics might sound familiar. A lot of times you're writing essays for colleges under supplemental questions with very similar topics. So when you are done with your applications, don't delete those essays. Go and massage those essays and use them in your scholarship applications, okay? All right, tip number 6. You can also work during college to keep costs down or help pay for it. I prefer if you work during the summer and kind of save that money up and help pay. But there are on-campus jobs. You can be a resident assistant and you can live on campus. And your job is basically giving you access to live on campus at either a reduced or free rate. You can also be a school ambassador where you're giving tours. I have seen students that do really well in a subject. They can be a tutor to other students or lower classmen. I went on a couple tours of some colleges this summer, and they were talking about their teaching assistant program, where if a student really does very well in a class, let's say chemistry, and you want to audit the class as a teaching assistant so that you're basically participating and you're hearing what the teacher's saying so that you can help teach the students or tutor the students, you can get paid to do that. I like on-campus jobs because when you go home for Christmas break, you can go home for Christmas break. You can also get jobs off campus at department stores, at clothing stores, at retail, at fast food, at grocery stores. But remember, if it's Thanksgiving week, those places are going to want you to work Black Friday where you go to school. So you might not be able to get time to go home, and so it just gets more complicated. I have seen students do, and this is very interesting to me, get some kind of trade certification prior to going to college. And then their part-time job at college is actually using the skills that they already have. So I have seen students get their EMT. I have seen students get their CNA. And honestly, I was talking to a dad in Florida whose son went and got his plumbing license, and so he basically paid his way through school by taking plumbing jobs. And he can control his time, he could control when he went on those jobs, and it was very lucrative for him. So I thought that was brilliant. Okay. When you're looking for websites, because again, I started this process because everybody's emailing me and saying, hey, where can I find a list of scholarships, right? These are some of the sites you could go to. Scholarships.com, studentscholarships.org, FastWeb, Going Mary, Appley, Appalii, whatever, a Big Future, Niche, College Foundation of North Carolina. You can go to any of these sites. I want you to be careful, right? So the first thing is if you go to a site and they're asking you for a lot of personal information, stop, proceed with caution, right? You want to be able to search for scholarships without giving everything away, right? Because what are they doing? What's their privacy policy? That other thing. FastWeb, my caution with them is, you can go to their website, fill out information, and then you'll get emails, but you're going to get an email at least every day. So they're just going to pepper you with emails. Student scholarship, you can sign up for a specific newsletter, and once a month you get an email with a list of scholarships that are coming due that month. I thought that was one of our board members pointed this one out to me, and it's very interesting to get my monthly newsletter with the list of scholarships. Some organizations will have like a no essay. You should never pay to apply to an application for scholarships. So just proceed with caution with those kind of things. All right. The other things I want you to do is I want you to think about what is unique about you, and then go Google and find, put whatever it is with the word scholarship and grant, or scholarship first and then grant. And you'd be amazed at what national, state, and local community scholarships might be available for dancers, musicians, STEM, soccer, ADHD, military, diabetes, right? Cancer survivors, students of cancer survivors, students who've lost a parent, right? Adopt Me. There is a program called Light in the state of North Carolina, and if it's a combination of students who are in the system for foster care past the age of 13 and or students who are still in the system, tuition is covered. Like, anyway, there's different programs. Go look for them, right? Go talk to your social worker about paying for college as a foster care kid or someone who was adopted and that kind of thing. All right. So go out and figure out what you have that might open doors, right? And then Crosby Scholars is here to help. We will be offering different workshops and sessions. Dominic Jones is our financial aid coordinator. He is a wealth of knowledge, and he's planning on doing a series as well. So stay close, get to our website and look for opportunities to sign up for additional things. You can also follow us on social media. We do post a lot of things there, and then we try to communicate via email to our parents and our students who are signed up. If your student is not signed up for Crosby Scholars, in August, you can go to our website, www.crosbyscholarsIredell.org, and you can click the Apply Now button. This is my little commercial. You can click the Apply Now button, and your student from 6th grade through 10th grade can join. It has been my pleasure. I hope you have a great day, and thank you for listening.